The stars looked different when you knew something was watching you from between them. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Atlantic and stared at the main screen where 3 massive alien ships hung in space like dark clouds against the starfield. The ships were huge and black with strange purple lights running along their sides like veins carrying poison through a giant body. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes who had spent 20 years fighting wars among the planets. He had seen orbital bombardments that turned whole cities into glass and watched good people die in the cold vacuum of space. Nothing in all those years had prepared him for this moment when humanity would meet aliens for the first time, and those aliens had come with weapons ready. The alien ships had appeared 3 hours ago just past Mars' orbit. They moved without any engine flames or heat signatures that human sensors could detect. They just slid through space like sharks through dark water. The largest ship was almost 2 miles long with a hull that seemed to bend light around it. The other 2 ships flanked it like bodyguards around a crime boss. Lieutenant Susan Parker sat at the tactical station running her fingers over controls that could destroy cities. She was young, with blonde hair pulled back tight and green eyes that missed nothing. Parker had grown up on the Mars colonies where people learned to fight before they learned to walk. The alien ships made her nervous, but she kept her voice steady when she spoke. "Captain, the lead ship is moving into position over Earth. They are broadcasting on all frequencies in broken English and Spanish and Chinese. The computer is trying to clean up the transmission now." Commander Rick Davis looked up from his engineering console where streams of data flowed like digital waterfalls. Davis was a short, thick man with dark skin and hands that could fix anything that broke. He had built weapons that could crack moons in half and engines that could outrun light itself. Right now, his hands shook just a little as he watched the power readings from the alien vessels. "Sir, those ships are putting out energy signatures I have never seen before. Whatever they use for power makes our fusion reactors look like birthday candles. But there is something strange about their weapon systems. The signatures are all wrong for their size." The main screen flickered and the alien transmission came through cleaned up by the ship computers. The voice was mechanical and cold, like a machine trying to pretend it had a soul. The words came in chunks as if whoever was speaking had learned human languages from old textbooks. "Small flesh creatures of the 3rd planet. We are the Zephyrian Collective. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into our empire. You will surrender all military vessels immediately. Your planet will be occupied and your population will serve the collective. This is not negotiation. This is fact. You have one of your time periods called hours to comply." Morrison felt something cold settle in his stomach. The aliens were not here to trade or explore or make friends. They had come to take Earth like pirates taking a merchant ship. Morrison had fought pirates before in the asteroid belt and knew that showing weakness would only make things worse. He turned to Parker, who was already running tactical scans on the alien vessels. "Parker, what do our sensors tell us about their capabilities?" Parker frowned at her displays as numbers scrolled past faster than human eyes could follow. The ship computer was analyzing everything it could detect about the alien vessels, and the results made no sense at all. "Sir, this is very strange. Their ships are huge, but most of the internal space seems to be empty. Their armor is thick, but it appears to be made of simple metal alloys. Their weapons are giving off energy signatures consistent with plasma cannons and particle beams. Powerful, but nothing we have not seen before in our own fleet." Davis looked confused as he double-checked his readings. "Captain, that cannot be right. Ships that size should be carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. These readings suggest they are armed like heavy cruisers, not dreadnoughts." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge where he could see all the displays at once. Something was wrong with this picture. The alien ships looked intimidating, but their actual capabilities seemed far less impressive than their size suggested. It reminded him of a story his grandfather used to tell about bullies who acted tough until someone stood up to them. "Parker, send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them we have first contact with hostile aliens demanding surrender. Request immediate backup from any ships in the system." The reply from Earth came back within minutes. Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the communication screen with her steel-gray hair and eyes like winter storms. Hayes had commanded Earth's defense forces for 10 years and had never lost a battle or backed down from a fight. "Captain Morrison, you are authorized to defend Earth by any means necessary. The USS Dakota and USS Colorado are already moving to your position. The USS Arizona will join you within 6 hours. Show these aliens what happens when someone threatens our home." Morrison nodded and turned back to the alien ships on the main screen. The Zephyrians had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that humanity would be an easy conquest based on what they could see from a distance. They had not bothered to learn what humans were really capable of when someone threatened their families and their world. "Davis, bring all weapon systems online. Parker, prepare for tactical scanning of the alien vessels. If they want to see what we are made of, we should return the favor." The USS Atlantic began to hum with power as weapons that could split atoms and bend gravity warmed up for possible combat. The ship had been built after humanity learned hard lessons about warfare during the colony wars. Every system had been designed with one simple goal in mind: win at any cost and make sure the enemy never got a second chance to threaten human lives. The alien ships began moving closer to Earth as if they expected the single human vessel to run away or surrender. They had no idea that they had just made first contact with a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other more efficiently. Now all that knowledge and skill was focused on one simple task: protecting Earth from anyone foolish enough to threaten it. The Zephyrians were about to learn why that was a very bad idea. The scanning beams hit the USS Atlantic like invisible fingers trying to tear apart every secret the ship carried. Lieutenant Parker watched her console as waves of alien energy swept through their hull, reading everything from the molecular structure of the armor plating to the quantum signatures of the weapon systems. The aliens were being very thorough in their examination of what they thought was a primitive human warship. "Captain, they are running deep penetration scans on all our systems. Hull integrity sensors, weapons arrays, power distribution, everything. They are trying to map our entire ship from the inside out." Commander Davis looked up from his engineering station, where warning lights were starting to flash in patterns that made his blood run cold. The alien scans were triggering automated responses built into every system on the ship. Responses designed to protect Earth's military secrets from enemy intelligence gathering. "Sir, their scanning has activated our security protocols. The ship AI is treating this as hostile reconnaissance. Phoenix is asking for permission to respond with appropriate countermeasures." Captain Morrison felt his jaw clench as he realized what was happening. The Zephyrians were not just threatening Earth with conquest. They were actively gathering intelligence on human military capabilities, which meant they were preparing for war. The USS Atlantic was not just any human warship, and the aliens were about to learn that the hard way. Phoenix was the ship artificial intelligence that controlled every advanced system on the Atlantic. The AI had been programmed with the combined tactical knowledge of every human military commander who had ever lived. Phoenix could analyze enemy capabilities faster than any human mind and recommend responses that would end conflicts as quickly and decisively as possible. The AI voice came through the bridge speakers, calm and measured like a teacher explaining a simple lesson to children. "Captain Morrison, hostile intelligence gathering detected. Enemy vessels are attempting to catalog our defensive and offensive capabilities. Threat assessment indicates preparation for military action against Earth. Assets. Recommend immediate demonstration of deterrent capability to discourage further hostile activity." Morrison looked at the main screen where the 3 alien ships continued their scans, as if the USS Atlantic was just an interesting specimen to be studied before dissection. The Zephyrians had no idea that they were not examining a primitive warship. They were poking a sleeping dragon with a very sharp stick. On the lead alien vessel, War Commander Thekval studied the incoming data from the scanning arrays with growing confusion. The human ship was much smaller than collective dreadnoughts, but the internal readings made no sense according to everything the Zephyrians knew about warfare and technology. Thekval was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms that moved like mechanical appendages. His species had conquered 47 worlds using superior technology and overwhelming force. Every previous enemy had fallen quickly once they realized the futility of resistance against collective might. The humans should have been no different. "Science Officer Veltar, what are these readings?" "The human vessel appears to contain energy sources that dwarf our own fusion reactors. Their weapon systems are showing signatures I do not recognize." Science Officer Veltar was smaller than her commander with pale blue skin and large black eyes that could see across multiple spectrums of light. She had analyzed the technology of dozens of conquered species and never encountered anything like what the human ship contained. War Commander, the readings are unprecedented. The human vessel contains what appears to be controlled antimatter reactions, far exceeding anything we have ever encountered. Their primary weapons seem to manipulate gravitational fields in ways our science cannot explain. Most disturbing, their defensive systems include what can only be described as artificial black holes. Back on the USS Atlantic, Commander Davis was monitoring the alien scans and running his own analysis of their technology. What he found made him smile grimly as he realized that humanity had made assumptions about alien capabilities that were completely wrong. Captain, I have finished analyzing their scanning methods and ship configurations. These aliens are using technology that is actually less advanced than our own in most areas. Their ships are big, but they rely on brute force rather than efficiency. Their weapons are powerful but crude compared to what we have developed. Lieutenant Parker looked up from her tactical display where the results of passive scanning showed her everything she needed to know about alien military doctrine. Sir, their entire approach to warfare seems to be based on intimidation through size and overwhelming numbers. They have never encountered organized resistance from a technologically equal opponent. Morrison nodded as he began to understand what they were facing. The Zephyrian Collective had built an empire by conquering species that could not match their military capabilities. They used fear and superior firepower to force surrender before battles even began. It was an effective strategy against primitives, but would not work against an enemy that could fight back. The communication system crackled to life as more human ships reported their positions. The USS Dakota was 12 hours out with weapon systems that could crack planets like eggs. The USS Colorado carried defensive shields that could stop stellar flares and offensive capabilities that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. The USS Arizona mounted experimental devices that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication screen again with updates from Earth Command. Behind her, Morrison could see displays showing the positions of every human military asset in the solar system. Automated defense platforms were coming online around Earth and Mars. Weapon satellites were adjusting their orbits to get clear shots at the alien fleet. The entire human military was mobilizing for war. Captain Morrison intelligence analysis suggests these aliens have never fought a peer-level opponent. Every species they have conquered has been technologically inferior. They do not know how to respond to resistance from an equal or superior force. Phoenix interrupted with new tactical data that made everyone on the bridge pay attention. Captain Morrison, the alien vessels have completed their scans and are beginning to withdraw to what they consider a safe distance. However, their definition of safe distance is based on their own weapon capabilities, not ours. They remain well within range of our primary systems. Morrison made a decision that would change the course of human history. The aliens had scanned an Earth warship without permission and threatened his homeworld. They needed to understand that humanity was not another primitive species to be conquered and enslaved. Phoenix, prepare to demonstrate our capabilities. Target selection should be impressive but not directly threatening to alien vessels. I want them to see what we can do without starting a shooting war. The USS Atlantic began to change as weapon systems came online that had never been tested in actual combat. Humanity had spent centuries developing ways to kill each other more efficiently. Now all that accumulated knowledge was being focused on showing hostile aliens why threatening Earth was the last mistake they would ever make. The beast was waking up, and it was very hungry. War Commander Thekval had built his reputation on the simple formula that had given the Zephyrian Collective control over 47 worlds and billions of enslaved beings. Superior technology plus overwhelming force equals inevitable victory. The formula had never failed, because the Collective had never encountered a species that could match their capabilities in open warfare. Standing in the command center of his flagship, Thekval watched displays showing the tactical situation around. The third planet of this unremarkable star system, one small human warship faced 3 collective dreadnoughts in what should have been the shortest conquest in military history. Instead, his science teams were reporting impossible readings that challenged everything the Collective understood about physics and warfare. Science Officer Veltar approached her commander with data tablets containing analysis that would have been dismissed as fantasy if not for multiple confirmations from independent sensor arrays. Her normally steady voice carried undertones of fear that made other bridge crew members stop their work to listen. War Commander, the human vessel contains technology that operates on principles we do not understand. Their primary weapons appear to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Their defensive systems include controlled gravitational anomalies that could deflect any weapon in our arsenal. Most disturbing, their power source seems to be a contained stellar reaction that should be impossible to achieve in a vessel that small. Thekval felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: uncertainty. The human ship was smaller than his flagship but contained enough destructive potential to sterilize entire solar systems. The tactical displays showed energy readings that exceeded the combined output of his entire fleet. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Hayes coordinated humanity's response from Defense Command deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The command center had been carved from solid rock during the colony wars, when Earth faced the possibility of orbital bombardment from rebel settlements on Mars and Europa. Hayes had never expected to use the facility against alien invaders. The main display showed the tactical situation in real time, as more human vessels moved toward the confrontation zone. Each ship represented decades of human innovation in the art of warfare. The USS Dakota carried weapons that could destabilize atomic bonds across entire enemy fleets. The USS Colorado mounted defensive systems that could redirect the energy of dying stars. The USS Arizona carried experimental devices that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Hayes had served in the colony wars where humans had learned that survival required constant innovation in military technology. Every defeat had been analyzed for lessons. Every victory had been improved upon. The result was a military doctrine based on one simple principle: win so decisively that the enemy never considers fighting again. Captain Morrison received updated intelligence from Earth Command that painted a clear picture of what humanity faced. The Zephyrian Collective was an empire built on technological intimidation. They conquered primitive species by demonstrating superior firepower, then demanding surrender. Most of their victims had been Stone Age civilizations with no hope of resistance. Commander Davis studied the alien ship configurations and found weaknesses that experienced human military engineers would never have allowed. The collective vessels were huge, but most of their internal space was wasted on unnecessary systems. Their armor was thick but made from simple alloys that human weapons could penetrate easily. Their weapons were powerful, but lacked the precision and efficiency that came from centuries of military evolution. Captain, their entire military doctrine is based on fighting enemies who cannot fight back effectively. Their ships are designed for intimidation and occupation, rather than combat against peer opponents. They have never needed to develop real tactical flexibility. Lieutenant Parker ran simulations on her tactical computer that showed how a battle between human and alien forces would develop. The results were so one-sided that she ran the simulations 3 times to verify the accuracy. Human weapons would tear through alien defenses like knives through paper, while alien attacks would be absorbed or deflected by human defensive systems. Phoenix provided additional analysis that explained why the aliens had made such a fundamental miscalculation about human capabilities. Captain Morrison, the Zephyrian Collective has conquered only pre-industrial civilizations over the past 300 years. They have no experience fighting an opponent with advanced military technology. Their tactical databases contain no information about warfare against technologically equal enemies. The communication system brought reports from human colonies throughout the solar system as civilian populations prepared for possible invasion. Mars colony activated defense shields that could protect the entire planet from bombardment. Europa base armed orbital platforms with weapons designed to destroy asteroids but equally effective against enemy spacecraft. The Belt Mining Consortium diverted cargo haulers to serve as improvised warships. Morrison realized that the aliens had made a mistake that would reshape galactic politics forever. They had threatened a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare. Humans had fought each other with sticks and stones, then graduated to chemical explosives, then nuclear weapons, then devices that could manipulate matter. at the subatomic level. War Commander Thekval received reports from his subordinate commanders who were demanding permission to withdraw to safe distance from the human vessel. The scanning results had revealed weapon systems that could destroy collective ships before they could return fire. The tactical situation had shifted from inevitable victory to potential disaster. War Commander, called his tactical officer, with voice distortion that indicated extreme stress. The human ship is powering up weapon systems that register as controlled gravitational distortions. If they fire such weapons at our vessels, the results could be catastrophic. Science Officer Veltar provided the analysis that would haunt Thekval for the rest of his life. War Commander, we have made first contact with a species that has weaponized physics itself. They do not simply build larger guns or thicker armor. They have learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe and turn them into instruments of warfare. On the USS Atlantic, Morrison made the decision that would establish humanity as a galactic power. The aliens needed to understand that Earth was not another primitive world to be conquered and enslaved. They needed to see what human military technology could accomplish when properly motivated. Phoenix, select an appropriate demonstration target. Something that will show our capabilities without directly threatening alien vessels. Make it educational. The ship AI responded with what sounded suspiciously like anticipation. Target selected Captain. Large asteroid designated Romeo 7, approximately 50,000 kilometers from alien fleet position. Recommended weapon, system gravitational lance, minimum power setting. Effect will be complete molecular disintegration of target mass. Morrison nodded as he prepared to show the Zephyrian collective why threatening humanity had been the worst mistake in their empire's history. The aliens had expected to find a primitive species armed with chemical rockets and metal bullets. Instead, they had discovered a civilization that treated the destruction of worlds as an engineering problem, with elegant solutions. The demonstration was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The asteroid designated Romeo 7 had been drifting through space for billions of years waiting for this moment. It was a massive chunk of iron and stone roughly the size of the alien flagship, with a surface scarred by countless impacts from smaller debris. In a few seconds, it would become the most important object in galactic history, as humanity demonstrated why threatening Earth was a fatal mistake. Captain Morrison stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by displays showing tactical data from across the solar system. More human warships were arriving every hour as Earth's defense forces mobilized for potential invasion. The USS Dakota had taken position beyond Mars orbit, with weapons that could sterilize continents. The USS Colorado held station near Venus with defensive systems that could stop stellar flares and offensive capabilities that made nuclear weapons obsolete. Lieutenant Parker coordinated with the weapons officer Lieutenant Carl Johnson to prepare the demonstration that would reshape interstellar politics forever. Johnson was a quiet man with steady hands, who had never fired a shot in anger, but knew exactly what human weapons could accomplish when properly aimed. Captain, all systems show. Ready. Phoenix has calculated optimal firing solution for maximum visual impact with minimal collateral damage. The gravitational lance is charged and ready on your command. Commander Davis monitored the power systems as they channeled enough energy to run entire cities into weapon systems designed by humans, who understood that sometimes the best way to prevent a war was to demonstrate the ability to win it quickly and decisively. Sir, all systems nominal. The antimatter containment fields are stable and the gravitational manipulation arrays are operating within normal parameters. We are ready to show these aliens what happens when someone threatens our home. War Commander. Thekval watched from his flagship as energy readings from the human vessel climbed to levels that should have been impossible for any ship to contain without catastrophic system failure. His science teams were frantically recalibrating their sensors, believing that such power concentrations could not exist in a vessel smaller than a collective battle station. Science Officer Veltar stared at displays that showed the human ship building up enough destructive potential to crack moons while maintaining perfect stability and control. Every law of physics that the collective understood suggested that such energy densities should result in immediate annihilation of any vessel attempting to contain them. War Commander. The human vessel is channeling power equivalent to a stellar Fusion reaction through weapon systems that operate on principles we cannot identify. If they discharge that energy in our direction, our ships will be destroyed before our defensive systems can respond. The demonstration began with a pulse of energy that registered on sensors throughout the solar system. The gravitational lance fired a beam of compressed spacetime that crossed 50,000 kilometers of vacuum in less than a second. The beam struck the asteroid Romeo 7 with mathematical precision, and the results exceeded even human expectations. The asteroid did not explode or fragment or melt under intense heat. It simply ceased to exist as its atomic structure was compressed beyond the point where matter could maintain coherence. Billions of tons of iron and stone were reduced to elementary particles in the span of a human heartbeat. Where a mountain-sized chunk of rock had drifted through space moments before, there was now only empty vacuum, and a few wisps of exotic particles that would dissipate within hours. Lieutenant Parker monitored the results as sensor data confirmed what everyone on the bridge had witnessed. Captain Target has been completely eliminated. No debris larger than individual atoms detected. Weapon performance exceeded specifications by 12%. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate and dramatic. Several ships began powering up their faster-than-light drives as commanders made independent decisions to retreat from what they now recognized as a combat zone. Other vessels activated what appeared to be surrender protocols, broadcasting messages on all frequencies in languages their computers struggled to translate. Commander Davis received transmission updates from the ship communication systems as Phoenix analyzed the flood of alien messages. "Captain, we are receiving multiple communications from the alien fleet. Most appear to be requests for clarification of our intentions, with several vessels broadcasting what the computer identifies as formal surrender declarations." War Commander Thekval found himself facing a situation no collective commander had encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. His fleet of 3 dreadnoughts, armed with the most advanced weapons in known space, had just witnessed a single human vessel eliminate a target larger than his flagship using a weapon that operated beyond collective understanding of physics. The tactical officer reported with voice distortion that indicated panic, barely held in check. War Commander, the human weapon did not simply destroy the asteroid. Our sensors indicate that the target mass was converted directly into energy and dispersed as subatomic particles. This suggests technology capable of manipulating matter at the fundamental level. Captain Morrison opened a channel to the alien fleet, knowing that his next words would either prevent a war or start one that would reshape the galaxy. His voice carried the calm authority of a man who had spent 20 years making life and death decisions in the cold vacuum of space. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You have just witnessed a minimal power demonstration of human defensive capabilities. The weapon we fired was set to its lowest possible setting and targeted an uninhabited asteroid. If you choose to continue threatening our world, we will demonstrate what our weapons can do when aimed at your ships. Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication screen from Earth Command with updates that showed the scope of humanity's military response. Defense platforms throughout the solar system had achieved full operational status. Every human colony was now protected by weapons that could destroy invasion fleets before they entered effective combat range. Captain Morrison, you now have full authorization to use any necessary force to protect Earth and human interests. The alien fleet has been classified as hostile, pending their response to diplomatic overtures. Show them that humanity is not another primitive species to be conquered and enslaved. Phoenix provided tactical analysis that painted a clear picture of how any battle would develop. Captain Morrison alien fleet capabilities have been analyzed and found inadequate for combat operations against human defensive systems. Their weapons cannot penetrate our armor and their defensive systems cannot stop our attacks. Estimated time for complete destruction of alien fleet if hostilities commence is 4 minutes and 37 seconds. War Commander Thekval stared at empty space where an asteroid the size of his flagship had existed moments before. The human demonstration had shown capabilities that made collective military technology look primitive by comparison. His science officer was providing analysis that challenged everything the Zephyrians believed about warfare and physics. War Commander, the humans have weaponized forces that we use for industrial applications. Their ship contains enough destructive potential to sterilize entire star systems. Most concerning, they appear to have dozens of similar vessels throughout their solar system. The communication system brought reports from collective ships throughout the fleet as commanders requested permission to withdraw to safe distance from the human vessels. Several captains were demanding immediate retreat to collective space to report their findings to the High Command. Thekval realized that the collective had encountered something unprecedented in their centuries of expansion. A species that was not only capable of resistance, but possessed military technology superior to anything in known space. The humans had turned warfare into a science, and the results were weapons that could reshape reality itself. The demonstration was over, but the real test was just beginning. 3 days passed in a strange dance of diplomacy and military posturing, as two species tried to find a way to coexist without destroying each other. The Zephyrian fleet maintained position at what they considered safe distance from Earth, while human warships continued arriving from throughout the solar system. Each new vessel carried weapons systems that alien sensors could barely comprehend. War Commander Thekval had spent those 3 days learning more about humanity than the collective had discovered about any species in centuries of expansion. The humans were not just technologically advanced beyond collective capabilities. They approached warfare with a sophistication that suggested thousands of years of military evolution. Captain Morrison found himself serving as humanity's first ambassador to an alien civilization, while simultaneously commanding Earth's most advanced warship. The dual role required diplomatic skills he had never trained for, but his military experience provided a foundation of calm authority that translated well across species barriers. The negotiations took place through carefully structured communication, sessions where both sides shared information while avoiding topics that might trigger renewed hostilities. Morrison learned that the Zephyrian Collective was an empire spanning dozens of star systems built on the conquest of primitive civilizations. Thekval discovered that humanity was a single species confined to one solar system, but possessing military technology that could challenge galactic powers. Science Officer Veltar provided daily briefings to her commander that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of human capabilities. Every human vessel that arrived in the system was different, carrying unique weapon systems and defensive technologies that suggested a military-industrial complex devoted entirely to developing new ways to destroy enemies. War Commander, the latest human vessel to arrive carries what our sensors identify as controlled stellar matter, contained in magnetic fields that should be impossible to generate. Another ship appears to mount weapons that destabilize the forces binding atomic nuclei together. A third vessel shows energy signatures consistent with artificial gravity wells capable of crushing our ships like insects. Admiral Lisa Hayes arrived in the system aboard the USS Montana, the newest and most advanced ship in Earth's fleet. The Montana was a technological showcase that demonstrated human engineering capabilities to anyone with sensors sophisticated enough to analyze its systems. The alien reaction to scanning the Montana convinced Hayes that diplomacy was preferable to warfare. Lieutenant Parker had spent the 3-day standoff analyzing alien communication protocols and military doctrine. Her reports showed that the Zephyrian Collective had built their empire using intimidation and overwhelming force against enemies who could not fight back effectively. They had no experience dealing with organized resistance from a technologically superior opponent. Captain, their entire approach to conquest is based on the assumption that superior numbers and firepower guarantee victory. They have never encountered a species that treats warfare as both science and art. Every battle they have ever fought has been won before the first shot was fired. Commander Davis studied the technical specifications that aliens had shared during the diplomatic exchanges. Collective technology was impressive in scale but relied on brute force rather than efficiency. Their ships were huge, but most internal space was wasted on redundant systems. Their weapons were powerful, but lacked the precision that came from centuries of competitive military development. Phoenix provided strategic analysis that helped Morrison understand the broader implications of first contact. Captain Morrison, the Zephyrian Collective represents the dominant military power in this region of the galaxy. However, Their expansion has been limited to conquest of pre-industrial civilizations. They have never encountered organized resistance from a technologically advanced species. War Commander Thekval faced a decision that would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. He could order his fleet to attack the human vessels and almost certainly face complete annihilation. He could retreat to collective space and report that Earth was too dangerous to conquer, or he could attempt to negotiate some form of coexistence with a species that had just demonstrated the ability to eliminate his entire empire. The breakthrough came when Morrison proposed a simple solution to the standoff. Humanity had no interest in conquest or expansion beyond their solar system. Earth wanted only to be left alone to develop in peace. The collective could continue their expansion in other directions without interference from human forces. Thekval found the proposal both reasonable and terrifying. Reasonable because it avoided a war that could destroy both civilizations. Terrifying because it established humanity as an equal power in galactic politics based solely on their demonstrated ability to defend themselves against any possible threat. The formal treaty negotiations took place aboard a neutral space station, constructed specifically for the purpose in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Human and alien engineers worked together to create a facility where both species could meet safely. The station became a symbol of what was possible when intelligent beings chose cooperation over conflict. Morrison represented humanity at the treaty talks, with Admiral Hayes providing guidance from Earth Command. The human negotiating position was simple and non-negotiable. Earth and all human settlements were under the protection of the Human Defense Force. Any hostile action against human interests would result in immediate and overwhelming military response. Thekval agreed to terms that established humanity as a recognized galactic power, despite being confined to a single star system. The collective would respect human territorial claims and avoid any actions that could be interpreted as hostile. In exchange, humanity would not interfere with collective expansion in other regions of the galaxy. The Treaty of Soul became the foundation for human relations with dozens of alien civilizations as word spread through the galaxy about the species that had faced down the mighty collective and negotiated from a position of strength. Other races approached Earth with respect rather than threats once they learned what had happened to the last group that tried intimidation. Captain Morrison returned to Earth as humanity's first interstellar diplomatic success story, though he preferred to think of himself as a soldier who had helped prevent unnecessary bloodshed. Commander Davis and Lieutenant Parker both received commendations for their roles in establishing humanity as a galactic power. The USS Atlantic resumed patrol duties in the outer solar system, carrying weapons that could reshape planets and defensive systems that could stop dying stars. The ship served as a visible reminder that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but was prepared to defend itself against any threat that might emerge from the darkness between the stars. War Commander. Thekval returned to collective space with reports that forced a complete reassessment of expansion policies. The High Command learned that the galaxy contained species capable of resistance and that conquest was not always possible or advisable. The humans had taught the collective a valuable lesson about the difference between size and strength. The galaxy learned that humanity might have started as a primitive species confined to one small world, but they had spent their entire history learning how to survive against impossible odds. When the aliens scanned Earth's warship looking for weaknesses, they had instead discovered a species that viewed every challenge as an opportunity to become stronger. The beast they had awakened was not savage or uncontrolled. It was humanity, at its most dangerous. Intelligent, organized, and absolutely determined to protect what was theirs. The galaxy would never underestimate them again.